Hi, I'm Rachel Jern and I'm with the High Point Police Department. And today I'm going to be reading for you the first chapter of Big Top Burning, the true story of an arsonist, a missing girl, and the greatest show on earth. I chose this book from the selection because it sounded like it was exciting and like a mystery, and that's what I really enjoy. So let's start. Some say they saw the flickering of a small flame on the side wall of the tent just above the men's bathroom. At first, no one moved. Surely the circus staff had it under control. But by the time the circus workers reached the fire, their meager buckets of water had little effect. As the crowd watched, the flame grew, spindling up the tent wall. Then someone yelled, "Fire!" and the panic began. A frightened crowd of 6,000 spectators began jostling down the rickety bleachers and across the grandstand toward the exits. The mob shoved aside folding chairs and anything else in the way. People tripped and fell. Some women and children were plucked up off the ground by kind, strong hands. Others were trampled under the rush of frantic feet. A crush of bodies pushed toward the main entrance on the west end of the tent. The northeast and northwest exits were blocked by tall steel chutes where snarling panthers still prowled inside. Meanwhile, the blaze spread across the ceiling of the massive big top, fueled by the mixture of wax and gasoline that was used to waterproof the tent. Pieces of flaming canvas floated to the ground and black smoke billowed, making it difficult to breathe. As the fire grew, the tent became an oven. Parents desperately struggled to hold on to their small children as everyone was swept along in the swarm of people rushing toward the exits. The tent burned to the ground in fewer than 10 minutes, and 167 people died. It was one of the worst tragedies the country had ever seen. From the ashes, questions arose. How did the fire start? Was it an accident? Could a madman have set it on purpose? Who cared for the people who survived? Who were the victims? How did investigators identify them? The mysteries surrounding the Hartford Circus fire are still being explored today, more than 70 years after the disaster occurred. Professionals and amateurs alike have examined the evidence and argued their theories. Now it's your turn. You could almost hear the buzz of excitement in the air over Hartford, Connecticut, leading up to the arrival of the one and only Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. Posters plastered on buildings and storefronts boasted the show's highlights. Mr. and Mrs. Gargantua the Great, a pair of enormous gorillas, aerialists performing a cloud ballet, and pantomime by the famous clown Emmett Kelly. Emmett Kelly was a tramp clown. He dressed in drab colors and painted a large white frown and black stubble on his face. His routine was different from those of other more colorful clowns whose slapstick antics were intended to make people laugh. Instead, without speaking a word, Kelly made people feel sorry for him. Poor weary Willie, the audience thought, chuckling as he unsuccessfully tried to sweep a circle of light into a dustpan. By the summer of 1944, Kelly had been traveling with the Ringling Brothers Circus for 3 years, and Weary Willie was one of its most popular attractions. In the 1940s, a trip to the circus was a rare treat. Though Hartford was a thriving city during the years of World War II, the average income was only about $52 a week. Many fathers and husbands served in the military overseas, and more women entered the workforce when they found themselves raising their families on their own. Kids often contributed to the family income or made their own pocket money by delivering groceries or newspapers. Buying food and paying rent took priority, and circus tickets were expensive. The nicer grandstand seats cost $1.20 each. But for an occasion as big as the Ringling Brothers Circus, families saved their pennies all year long. A poem in the circus program promised, "The real fairyland is right at hand. It's where the circus holds sway." Going to the circus was not only a delight for children, it gave everyone a break from the real world. Emmett Kelly claimed people love the circus because they want to laugh and forget their troubles. Worries about food rationing or bomb shelters faded away amid the bright colors and lively music of the greatest show on earth. Even the government thought the circus was good for the morale of the country. During the war, railroad travel was restricted so that military supplies and machinery could be transported quickly and efficiently. However, the Ringling Brothers Circus was given special permission to use the rails to travel from town to town. The government also used the circus to promote the sale of war bonds. People who bought bonds were loaning their money to the government to pay for the war. After the war was over, people could cash in the bonds and get their money back plus interest. In addition, anyone who bought war bonds was given free tickets to the circus. With many men fighting overseas, there was a shortage of staff to run the circus. Ringling Brothers placed this advertisement in Billboard magazine. Good salary and expenses offered to ambitious young men who are not subject to call in the armed forces. Learn the art of outdoor advertising with the greatest show on earth. They also hired local boys in the towns where they stopped. Too young to enlist in the military, the boys had free time and were eager to help out. They took care of the animals by filling their troughs with water from fire hydrants, and they spread straw and sawdust on the ground. The older, stronger boys served as roustabouts. Roustabouts helped to set up and take down the tents and did other physical labor around the grounds. Young boys made 50 cents for a day's work, or they received free passes to the show. Many kids thought that being part of the action and getting a free ticket to see the amazing Ringling Brothers Circus was even better than money. At the end of June 1944, 15-year-old Robert Sedgey thought he'd like to get a closer look at the greatest show on earth. Robert lived with his parents and siblings in Portland, Maine. He was a tall boy and strong, much bigger than the other kids his age. Robert had few friends, though, and he had not done well in school. Because he had been kept back several times, he was older than all his classmates. Brooding and quiet, Robert spent most of his time alone in his room. To make matters worse, Robert and his father did not get along. Mr. Sedgey bullied Robert and yelled at him often. He always seemed to be punishing Robert for small mistakes. So Robert ran away from home and joined the Ringling Brothers Circus when it came to Portland. The manager of the lighting department, Edward Whitey Versteeg, gave Robert a job setting up the wiring and lights in the big top. Later, Robert proudly told people he had even worked the main spotlight during the shows. Everyone in the circus family had been looking forward to the summer season. The performers and workers got settled into the train cars in which they lived and traveled. Animal trainers practiced their acts with the elephants and the panthers, and the season had been off to a good start when the show reached Portland, or until the show reached Portland. There, the crew discovered a small fire on top of the tent ropes. Luckily, it was put out immediately and caused no real damage. The show went on without incident. At the next stop in Providence, Rhode Island, bad luck struck again when a small blaze appeared on a tent flap. Like the flame in Portland, it was quickly extinguished before it did any harm. There was always dry straw on the ground for the animals, and cigarette smoking was common, so the staff wasn't alarmed when small fires popped up once in a while. The seat hands, who were circus workers who manned the bleachers and grandstand, were always able to put them out quickly with buckets of water placed throughout the tent. A cause for the fires in Portland and Providence was never determined, and the traveling show continued on its way. As the circus was rolling into Hartford, the Cook family was enjoying a reunion. 9-year-old Donald, 8-year-old Eleanor, and 6-year-old Edward were visiting their mother, Mildred. Life had not been easy for the Cooks. Mildred's husband had recently abandoned his family. And Mildred suddenly needed a way to support her children. She got a job at an insurance company in Hartford and left Donald, Eleanor, and Edward in the care of her brother and sister-in-law, Ted and Marion Parsons, in Southampton, Massachusetts. While Uncle Ted and Aunt Marion were like a second set of parents to the children, they were excited about this special visit with their mother. They had taken the train from Southampton and couldn't wait to see the wild animal acts and silly red-nosed clowns. The Ringling Brothers' 3-ring circus was scheduled to perform 4 shows in Hartford, 2 on July 5th and 2 on July 6th. Mildred had tickets for the matinee on July 5th, but when she and the children arrived at the circus grounds, they saw that the tents were not yet up. There was no smell of fresh buttery popcorn in the air, and there were no sideshow barkers enticing people to gawk at human oddities. The grounds were a mess of canvas tenting, ropes, and half-assembled food stalls. Confusion on the tracks had held up the circus train for several hours on its way from Providence to Hartford. The performers and crew finally reached the grounds at 350 Barber Street around noon, but it was too late. There was not enough time to get the big top and the side tents ready for the matinee. Disappointed circus goers clutched their tickets, wondering what to do. The staff told everyone to return to the matinee the following afternoon. Mildred exchanged her tickets and assured her children that they would not miss out on the show. The Ringling Brothers crew was disheartened at the train's late arrival, but there was still work to do, including setting up the enormous big top. The main tent was massive. It was 450 feet long and 200 feet wide, 1/3 longer than an entire football field. Elephants pulled on the ropes, hoisting 75,000 square feet of heavy canvas into position. Trainers got the animals comfortable, and the cook prepared food for the tired, hungry crew. After the grounds were ready, Robert Seiji ate with the rest of the crew and performers in the mess tent, waiting for the evening show to begin. Many performers were superstitious about missing a show and considered their late arrival a bad omen. So that's chapter 1 of Big Top Burning, the true story of an arsonist, a missing girl, and the greatest show on earth. And again, I'm Rachel with High Point Police. Thanks for listening.